Wayne, have I got a microphone on? Is this microphone? Yeah, I can hear it now. I can hear myself speaking. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to go ahead and call our special call session of the Church Council to order. In this session, this is actually a continuation of our Church Council meeting from 2 weeks ago, where we decided that we wanted to get a little more information on the request from Bethel Men's Shelter to open up our sanctuary for a 2-week period this year to serve as an overflow facility if needed. And then we also have a church budget to approve. And then there was a discussion that came up about whether or not we want to modify our current mask policy. To make sure that we did not have any misinformation based upon rumor or not founded in fact, we reached out to Bethel Men's Shelter to ask for representatives from their organization to come answer those questions and make sure we have the correct information. And we have with us today Richard Murr and Jesse Kramer, and they're sitting over here where I was sitting this morning. So when we get to the question session, they'll be able to answer some questions fully. Now this morning, an email went out, actually it might have been last night, from Dr. Click in response to a thoughtful email that had been sent earlier from John Howenstein. They did a wonderful job of recapturing the minutes, actually the discussion from the church council meeting, and I wanted to use that as my starting point concerning the first issue. Dr. Click writes, the request from the Bethel Men's Shelter is that Aldersgate Methodist Church accept a 2-week period from December the 5th through the 19th to serve as an overflow facility in the event the men's warming shelter is full at Bethel's campus. Bethel has a dozen years of experience with the shelter, and they have extended it from being a part of the year warming shelter to a year-round shelter that offers counseling and other services to homeless men in our community. The Reverend Emily Sutton is the director of the Bethel Men's Warming Shelter. Richard, if that's changed, you can tell us if that's you or someone else now. Bethel has not had a problem with the men that they minister to. Overflow is a more recent addition to their ministry, and more than 20 churches have volunteered to be Overflow sites and continue to do it. The church that has taken the rotation from December 5th through the 19th in prior years cannot accommodate them this year, and Pastor Steve Holler was asked if Aldersgate could do this. During the council meeting that we held on Ring Central, Pastor Steve invited Reverend Emily Sutton to dial in so that we could ask her questions, and she answered all of our questions that we raised. But we also realized there may be other questions that could have been asked or may be asked to a higher degree of clarification. And since Margie was on vacation, we didn't have Margie to capture all of this for us, and I'm so glad that Bill did. Oh, were you there, Margie? Well, never mind. Just like Bill and I had a conversation a few minutes ago about our memories aren't as good as they used to be, but thank you, Margie, for being there. Here's what Bill captured for us. The men will eat at Bethel around 6 p.m., not here, at Bethel. They will leave Bethel for Aldersgate between 7 and 7:30. A paid security guard will follow their vehicle and will be with them all the time they are here at Aldersgate through the hours of the night. They will be confined to the fellowship hall and have access to our restrooms. They will not have permission to go elsewhere in the church building. Churches in this program have experienced no instances of theft or damage. More than 20 churches have participated as Overflow sites. Cots are brought in daily that are stored on a trailer that's brought here and placed on site. The men will set up the cots in the evening and they'll break them down in the morning, and the men clean up the area before leaving. Not us. The men that are staying here do that. Most or all will leave by 7:30 in the morning. Aldersgate assumes no responsibility other than admitting the group into the church building. The group has slept next to equipment at other churches valued at far more than our $50,000 audiovisual system, and they haven't touched it. Reverend Sutton envisions no problems involving our system in the sanctuary or anything else in the building. The men also have no need for a kitchen, showers, or anything other than the use of the fellowship hall and the restrooms. Now, we did mention that they're welcome to plug in a coffee maker in our kitchen. We're not saying thou shalt not go into the kitchen ever in your lifetime. It's available. It's there close by in the fellowship hall, and we realize that they may go in there for that purpose. So, Bill, I appreciate you taking the time to capture everything here. Now, John Howenstein's message, which was what Bill was answering, included some other thoughtful information that I want to share with you in case you did not read his email message. First has to do with the full disclosure and accurate information about this issue. And these are John's words. Some people feel that we are rushing in to making a decision with incomplete or inaccurate information, and there are a lot of questions which may or may not be addressed on Sunday. I intend to make sure we address them all. Both sides of this issue will be heard today. The fact that we were not given enough information about logistics, COVID measures, and security at the beginning indicates these issues were not well thought out. Many people doubt the statistic about 75% of the homeless men having been vaccinated, when only 44% of the people in York County have been fully vaccinated. Being given incorrect or misleading information often raises doubts about other information. We need more answers, and as often happens when one question is answered, more questions arise needing answers. He also included another paragraph, which I had not thought of, but I want to make sure that we are aware of and that we handle appropriately, and that is, some people may feel a level of intimidation in voicing an opinion because taking a stance against opening your church to the homeless does not feel congruent with the words of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. But it's still something that we need to consider. We need to hear these words and understand why, because these actually lay the foundation for our growing spirit of evangelism in our missions in this church. If some people feel intimidated, and these are John's words again, by the way, if some people feel intimidated and fear people will judge them and may accuse them of not being a good Christian by expressing their doubts about this issue, we may never know the true feelings of the congregation. The same could be said about having a vote by showing hands. Some council members may feel intimidated. So I have brought along some little pads here, and I'm going to ask Al to hand these out, and we'll just use these to write yes or no on. You don't put a name or anything else. You'll just answer yes or no, and we'll collect them up, and nobody will have to feel like they should be intimidated from answering the questions. Just tear a sheet off if you need it and use that. And then the third concern John brought up was about losing members. We have lost several dozen members over the last 10 years because of actions taken by the national church or by our own pastors. Most of us are very concerned about our dwindling congregation size and are frequently talking about how we can attract new members. We certainly don't want to do anything that may drive current members away, and I certainly agree with that. So it's my job as the church council chair to show leadership, to lead us to the decision we're going to make, but it's not a foregone decision by any means. So with that having been said, I'm going to first offer the microphone to Richard Murr or Jesse Kramer to speak for a moment about Bethel Men's Warming Shelter, or Bethel Men's Shelter as it's now known, so that they can perhaps address any questions that you have, and then I want to open up the floor to you to ask your questions of these men. Is that okay?
Can I ask something about the vote?
Hold on just a minute. Give Lynn the microphone, please.
Is the vote for council members only?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Lynn, for asking that. I should have said that. This is a church council meeting. It's not a church conference. At a church conference, every member can vote. At a church council meeting, the council members vote. The congregation was invited to get more information or to share your viewpoint so that the church council members could consider your words in making our decision. Richard Murr, you have the microphone.
Well, good morning. As Greg said, my name is Richard Murr. I'm actually a member at Bethel United Methodist Church and the operations director of the Bethel Men's Shelter. And Jesse is here on behalf of our board. He's a board member with the shelter. You really summed everything up very well. There are a couple of things that I want to bring to note. I've got some packets of information up here. We have our own process in place on what we do as far as an overflow. It's written down. Like a lot of things a church or a ministry does, it does change from time to time. We see a better way to do it, things we shouldn't do. But we have a process for our security. One of the things on security, they're not just paid. These are SLED certified security officers. So they have underwent that background, their background checks. They're certified, they're Narcan certified. Some do CPR, things like that. But they will be on property whether you do this or not. In any of our overflows, they leave when the van leaves to transport the men over. And that's generally not until 7:30. We do dinner from 6 to 7. We have case management offered to them. So at 7:30, we begin to assign beds at Bethel. We have 36 beds year-round at Bethel. And what we do from mid-November until April the 5th is we turn no one away during the cold weather months. And that's what the overflows are all about. This year, we're going to have 9 overflows. We're trying to fill spots for the last remaining 2. We do 2 to 3 week increments. That's with an agreement with the city of Rock Hill for zoning purposes. So you don't have to be zoned as a group home. So that's what we do there. The second handout page I have is we actually, 9 different overflows, 9 locations, 9 different churches. Yes, ma'am. As we go into a church, we have a process for each church. Understand we'll be using the Family Life Center. I'm sure there's other things going on there. If you have activities on a Wednesday night, Tuesday night, you don't need us to come to 8. We write that in our policy. We take pictures of sites on where people want tables and things like that. So we leave it just like we found it. Some churches were able to leave our cots there overnight through the whole 2 or 3 weeks. If not, as Greg mentioned, we have a trailer we leave on site with our cots, extra bedding, all of our supplies, cleaning supplies, coffee makers, coffee, things like that. We've done this so long, we have it down. I don't want to say to a science, but we really do. We're very proud of what we do. As far as I know that there was some questions on COVID concerns. And obviously, like every place else in the world, our life changed. Emily and I first talked about it on March the 6th, 2020. It's hard to believe it's been that long ago. But we have a process in place through York County Emergency Management, South Carolina DHEC. We work with Piedmont Medical and Atrium Health. Our men have signed releases of information that allow us, If there's any symptoms of COVID, we send them to the hospital. They are tested. They are quarantined by South Carolina DHEC during that process, where they're actually sent to a hotel and managed by the state of South Carolina. When they clear quarantine, they come back. Since March of last year, and last year alone, we saw 311 different men. So far this year, we've seen over 250 different men. We've had 3 positive cases during that time. We identified each one. They were isolated, handled through the state of South Carolina. Any close contacts were isolated. And that's how we do that. We clean, our facilities are cleaned by Interstate Solutions here in Rock Hill, but we purchased a 55-gallon drum of institutional type cleaner that's specifically for COVID. It's on our trailer, that's what we clean with, so it's disinfected. We do the best we can. So we've got, Jesse and I didn't dream this thing up. You know, we've had doctors involved in the state of South Carolina, so we follow that process, and I think that's why we've been so successful and really haven't had that many cases. We have DHEC come in and do testing regular at Bethel during our dinner hour. We've had DHEC come in and do the vaccine in our facility. When the city of Rock Hill first opened up at the mall, we transported guests by van. I would drive over there and it's where I got my first vaccine shot with some of our men. So we do things like that. So I know I've covered a lot of things real fast, but I'm trying to keep it short. I was in a church council meeting Wednesday night, and I know how long some of these things can go. So I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have. Yes, ma'am.
I do have a question because we have a lot of residential around us, and that part of the building is zoned single family 3. And I work in the zoning division for the city of Rock Hill, so I'd like us to have a copy of whatever assurance that we're not breaking any zoning regulations prior to giving permission.
Right, okay. And to kind of reiterate, we can get that for you, but we also, the city of Rock Hill knows where we go each overflow. When it's in the city, we actually do a couple outside the city, then we communicate with the county. So they know in case, you know, there's a fire in the building or anything like that, they know which building is being occupied at what time.
I've got
Yes,
one.
sir.
About how many men do you expect in the overflow per night?
No more than 25. We try to keep it around 20, and the reason being is transportation. We have a 14-passenger van, and we don't want to we generally just want to make 2 trips, so we try to keep them, you know, it's 14 passengers, and you got some backpacks and things like that. So by experience, that's what we've kind of learned.
That would bring up what's our how with cots and such, do we have that amount of room in our fellowship hall?
I didn't understand your question.
He asked about the space.
In our fellowship hall, I don't know if we can fit 25 if you figure cots and such, because that's going to be, unless we're doing bunk beds.
I have not seen the space. At Bethel, we have 36 beds and less than 2,000 square foot, 6 Sunday school rooms.
Bill.
What about insurance implications?
Is there a trustee who can address that?
I'm not sure about insurance. I know we have added riders for the school crowd and the Boy Scouts. So I don't know for a 2-week period. That might be something I can look into.
Richard, why don't we ask Bethel about that? You've got 9 other churches you're using. Can you ask those other churches if they had to have a rider on their insurance policy to permit this?
I'll ask. I'm not aware of any. I mean, obviously, we're fully insured. We do all of our insurance through Jim Guild at Guild Insurance.
Does your insurance extend to the overflow facilities?
I think we could get that.
Please find that out.
I don't have the
for
right
us.
term, where we would list you as an insured on it.
Please find that out
Okay.
if you will, and Steve, if you can follow up with our insurance company to ask if we need to add a rider for that as well. Does that answer the question, Linda?
Well, we still won't know if
We won't know before the vote. No, we won't.
I have some questions that people have given me. You said there'd be 20 men perhaps in our fellowship hall, which has 9 doors, and how's one security person going to control 9 doors with 20 people going out one door and then maybe going out another door?
Right. Excellent question.
And I
We go into different churches that have different things. We generally, haven't seen this space, but we lock off doors. By our agreement with the City of Rock Hill, we need to be ground level with an entrance and 2 exits. So,
I'd like to almost ask John, since someone brought that question to you, if the person that asked that question would be willing to spend an evening with Bethel at one of these overflow facilities to see how this is controlled. It's almost like they're expecting this to be Animal House, and I can't imagine that that's anywhere true. Next question.
Well, I have one more or 2 more. You have indicated that the church the cots will be taken up during the day. Is that right? Every day?
if that's what you wish.
Okay.
Some churches give us the space for 2 weeks. And I kind of want to clear up, and one of the questions was the participation of your congregation. We would like you to participate, but quite frankly, we've had churches in the past hand us a key on Sunday afternoon, then we stay 3 weeks and we give the key back. They don't participate, we just get the space. So that part's up to you.
Well, my question was about, is the church going to be available during the day if we need it during the day?
Oh, absolutely.
Primarily on Saturday, because we have Seventh-day Adventists that meet here on Saturday.
Absolutely.
And we don't want to lock them out.
Yes, sir. We will come not prior to 7:30 p.m. nightly, and we will exit by 7 a.m. We try to get, and reason being, some of these men, we have guys who work, try to get to the bus station. When we leave here, we will offer to go to My Ride, the hub downtown, then they come back to Bethel. We don't drop off anywhere else, but we'll be here not prior to 7:30 at night, and we will exit not any longer after 7 a.m.
Okay, last question is, are we the only church that these is the last option, or are there other churches on a waiting list to do this if we decide not to do it?
We have other options. With that question, we were faced with a situation 4 years ago by a church, and they had lots of questions. They decided to do it on a 1-year trial, if you will. They make a reservation for their date now. It's been such a success. They give us the date they want to have to work around their children, basketball, things like that. So they make a reservation in the summer. Yes, ma'am.
I don't have a question, and this is not really directed to you, but to the church members. I haven't made up my mind yet how to vote, but the first thing that comes to my mind is evangelism. And Greg touched on this a little bit ago. Is this not a form of evangelism? And isn't that what we've been talking about for months?
I don't have a question as much as I have a statement. I'd first like to say thank you to Bethel for doing what they do for as long as they've done it. And if this is just my opinion, but in my mind, there's no question, absolutely no question. This is something we need to do, in my opinion. Thank you.
How do you handle them on the weekends?
Meaning?
Like, you still leave at 7 a.m. Saturday morning, and you leave 7 a.m. Sunday morning, so everything's collected and put either in the trailer, in this case probably back in the trailer, and so it would be like they weren't even here.
Absolutely, except for a trailer sitting outside.
Right. And how do you do about cleaning?
The men, we have our own cleaning procedures, but some churches have other things they want to do. We have mops and disinfectant and all that in our trailer. We clean as we exit. You tell us what tables, if we're moving things away, and we do that. and I'll use West End Baptist for example. We use their gymnasium. They have a lot of activities going on in their gymnasium. There's tables in there.
Right.
Certain days of the week, we have to remove the tables, put in a hallway, and that's what all these pictures are about. They show us exactly where they want them. And our security kind of oversees this. We have board members, our committees. We have a 15-member board that's not your typical board. They're a working board. We do site visits during this time, but quite frankly, you know, we keep the same schedule. We have just found that to work best because it's predictable.
Okay, and you said that showers, and that was one of my questions about the showers, since we don't have any on location. So all of that is handled before they come over here, you eat your dinner, and
Correct.
everything's processed before you come.
Correct. We, at Bethel, we open at 5:50 nightly, except for Sundays. We open at 5 p.m. And that's because there is no, my ride, Rocky Hill suspended services because of COVID on Sundays. So we kind of shortened that up so the men could be in earlier. We do showers every night from 6 to 9 p.m. During the overflow months, the guys that are assigned to the overflow have the first shower shift, if you will, between 6 and 7:30. Showers, dinner, they're checked in. We go through our COVID protocols. They meet with case management, whatever that may be. Then they're transported back here that night, not prior to 7. We won't leave over there till 7:30 or later, whatever you tell us, you know.
Okay, and I know this sounds weird, and I'm sorry, but somebody
No.
posed this question to me too, so I'm repeating the question.
Okay.
For sanitary, are the cots sanitized because of, you know, I hate to say it, but varmints that might come in with them or anything like that?
Our guys don't carry varmints with them.
Okay, that's what I was
They're
asking.
they're just like you and I.
Okay.
And if you're talking about bed bugs,
Yes, I am.
Mouse Justice was infested with
I know.
bed bugs about a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
We have our facility treated monthly for bed bugs and all kind of varmints.
Okay.
We clean, we clean the cots.
Okay.
These are Red Cross cots that gave us their,
Okay.
they're metal and canvas. Bed bugs are attracted to generally wood, dark conditions, cool conditions, and humans. Yeah. They're not living at your place. We bring them around and drop them off. And I could do it just as well as a homeless person, okay?
Do any of the men attend your worship service or worship service in the overflow locations?
Yes and no. When we went year-round in April 2019, I had a Sunday school class at Bethel at 10 in the morning. I felt led to start a Sunday school class for the men who want to come. They're not required to come. We don't close them in the room and make them stay. So we started in 2019 with 3 men. We had 37 there this morning. And it's become quite the thing. We've got a member at Newkirk Baptist who kind of leads the Sunday school for the men. Emily gave up her appointment, for lack of a better word, down at Philadelphia. So she's part-time Bethel pastor, part-time executive director of the shelter. And she's able to attend Sunday school now. We had one of our men came to worship service about 3 weeks ago. Some go to other churches. Other churches pick them up at site, from our site to go. So, yes.
Thank you for coming this morning.
Yes, sir.
I think you've answered my questions. We have been in a situation where we have helped serve at the Bethel Church, through the Lexington Commons where we lived and so forth. Have never seen anything that we were opposed to. It's always been a good experience. My feeling is this. I agree with Steve back here. Evangelism and Christianity bothers me if we turn this away. I mean, we are here to serve, and we are here. And you've answered all the possible questions that I can think of. I just thank you.
Thank you. Well, I mean, I'll go back. I mean, I don't know if the lady who did the children's sermons here. I mean, you asked the question, you know, do we wish to be like Jesus? And, you know, That's individually, we have to answer that.
This is just, we are all here so that we can share and form opinions, but the paper was passed out before it was confirmed that this is council. I would suggest that when we go to vote, that we put our name on here so it's confirmed that we're part of the council. All the ballots maybe go to Margie, who has a list of names, and she can do the tally and then throw them away. I know people want to be anonymous, and I think we can trust Margie. But again, I see a lot of faces here I don't see at council meetings, so I just wanted to put that out there.
And she's the incoming chairman, so I support her 100%, 100%. I understand. Good point, and I was thinking the same thing while we were pondering. Donna.
Well, I know that we were all contacted by, I believe, Dallas, that this was to be a church meeting. And I'm not on council, but I stayed because I'm a member of this church. And that's what we were told this was until Al said this morning, if you're not on council, you need to leave. And so a lot of people did leave.
No one was asked to leave.
But they should be here.
No one was asked to leave.
Yes, he did. He did. Because I started to leave, and then I thought, no, this is supposed to be a church meeting.
Donna.
And a vote afterwards.
I want to interrupt you just a moment there. I asked the same thing of the pastor because I wanted clarification on this topic. In the United Methodist Church, the church council makes decisions on business like this.
I understand that.
And this is a church council topic of discussion, but we wanted to make sure that everybody who wanted to voice an opinion was able to do so.
I understand that.
But it will be church council that votes.
I understand that.
Okay.
I didn't take a slip of paper. I
Go ahead.
didn't plan on voting. I just wanted to say to him, you've answered a lot of questions for me that I didn't have answers to. And I appreciate so much what you've shared. And I'm very impressed with what you've told us and what you offer and how you're running your program. And I think it's marvelous. And my mind has been changed. But I just wanted to get that clarified, that we were all contacted as members of this church to come to stay after church. But it didn't seem like it when church was over. So I just wanted to make that clear. I think maybe some people did not stay because they didn't know that they were invited. People, especially if they hadn't been looking at their emails, you know, that came from the church office about this. So that's just what I want to say. But I really thank you for everything you've shared.
And Emily and I are accessible. We're very accessible people. I mean, you know, I can talk about this 3 minutes or 3 hours and 30 minutes.
I can tell. I can tell it's your passion.
Yeah. Diane? That's okay.
Yep. Just to clarify, it's an overflow for the period of December 5th through the 19th only.
Correct.
As needed.
No, it's a 2-week commitment.
Right.
Look, yeah.
But as needed, so if you don't have enough and you fill the other areas first, it might be that we don't have, but 0 to maybe, you never know.
I know.
No, I'm just saying that.
But no,
it's just for that
when the
period
weather
of 2
gets
weeks.
cold, we
Right.
will begin having a wait list late October. You know, the homeless population of men know when we open our overflows. And what we do, we populate the overflow first with men. I mean, we have men that work second shift, third shift, that have to stay at Bethel. They have rides there. So we have a certain population. I mean, we have handicapped individuals. I mean, we have men using walkers right now. We had one guy in a wheelchair. We've had blind people. They stay at Bethel. We don't transport them around. It's some of the maybe new people that come into the shelter, guys who are unemployed, that can't be employed at the time, that we populate the overflow to leave beds open at Bethel, because Rock Hill PD know at night when it's cold and they see a person downtown, they can bring them to Bethel.
So you have a roster of who you know is going to be here for the most part?
Not today. I will, 2 days prior, I pretty much, we have sign-in sheets, and yes, ma'am, we do that. Yeah.
Okay, that may clarify.
Yes. And we may just start out with one van trip. It may be 10 or 12 guys, but we will use, if you approve this facility, the Family Life Center, for 2 weeks, no doubt.
I'm sure you have this covered, but I haven't heard any mention to it. What is your stance on drug and alcohol? I mean, are they tested, or what's that issue?
We are an emergency shelter, and that meaning we are like the church, come as you are. We do not drug or alcohol test. Our security, we screen if an individual, and I'll be straight up with you, we have men who maybe drink during the day or use drugs during the day. At the door, they sign a behavioral agreement, and that basically saying they're going to be a good citizen. They're not going to do harm to themselves or others, and they're admitted. And let's face it, we all know somebody that has a drinking problem, and all they need is a place to sleep at night. They can come in and eat dinner and take a shower and go to bed and be, as I call them, good boys. That's what we're there for. We do not do any drug, we don't drug test. We're an emergency shelter. We're not allowed to.
I just want to say that I think Bethel has done a wonderful job on what it does, and you've been running the inn for the people that are cold and have no place to sleep. And all you're asking for us is to open up the manger when the inn is full. And I think there's a story in the Bible that covers that. And I don't have any problem with it. And you pretty much know how I'll vote. So.
Yeah.
John, that's.
Well, you're right. I mean,
thank you.
Our whole ministry is rooted around Matthew 25:40. And it just is, And when we serve these people, we're serving Jesus. Pretty simple when you think about it like that.
Okay, well, let me see if there's any more hands that want to hold that microphone. Okay, so as your chairman, I've got a few words to share with you here. And I read something last night that kind of has stuck with me. I wanted to share this with you. A true leader doesn't create separation. A true leader brings people together. The whole point of doing this church council meeting in this type of an open forum is for exactly that purpose, to make sure that we are addressing all of the issues. I think we've turned it over quite thoroughly with the questions that people have. Following in with John's very timely statement about the manger, I wanted to share with you two things from the Bible that I pulled, and Richard just touched one of them, but one is found in Proverbs chapter 19, verse 17. If you help the poor, you are lending to the Lord, and He will repay you. We talk a lot here at Aldersgate about wanting God to bless our ministry, to enlarge it. We talk a lot about evangelism. One of the very first sermons that Pastor Steve gave to us was about putting on Jesus' skin, putting on your Jesus skin. There's not been a single issue that our church council has addressed more directly that touches on putting on Jesus' skin, doing what Jesus would do, than to open up our church as an overflow facility. Not one issue has come up like this. Not one. This is not like washing cars. This is not like a bake sale. This is like doing what Jesus would actually do. And to follow on with Matthew that Richard touched on, from Matthew 25, verses 34 through 40, we find these words. Then the king will say to those on his right, Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. Then the righteous will answer him, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? And when did we see you a stranger and welcome you, or naked and clothe you? Out of 28 years of membership at Aldersgate Methodist Church, I have never confronted a single issue in this church that more directly puts me in those verses than this one. So with that said, I'm going to open up the floor to the church council to hear motions on this question. Are we going to open up our facility as an overflow for Bethel, or are we not? The floor is open to church council members to make a motion. Stephen Barfield.
That's easy for me. I make a motion that we open our church for at least a 2-week period, and help Bethel out.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Church council members, you are welcome to use the pads I provided or any other piece of paper you wish, and provide that with your vote, yes or no, to Margie. Margie will tally these votes and give us the report of the results. And the ushers are taking up your votes in the plates.
Not just one? Should we have 2 people counting, not just one?
I trust Margie. Margie, go ahead and count them for us, please, when you get them. Please pass those out because we're going to vote on that next. Thank you, Richard. We appreciate you bringing those. You ready, Margie? Okay, bring a microphone to Margie, please.
Okay, the result is unanimous, 21-0.
Richard?
Well, thank you so
Jesse?
much, and we'll offer this. You're going to have more questions. We are accessible. I know at some time prior to the visit, Jesse and I and some other folks will come do a walkthrough to kind of answer the questions about the doors and look at these things, because I haven't seen the site, and that's why we come look, to make, what we need to do to make your building as safe, and so our security officer, because that is always a great question, how does this one guy watch 20 people? And we have 36 at Bethel, and we strategically place him in an area where he can see up and down the hall if anybody comes out of the room. So we bring our security people in, and we look and we identify the needs of the site. Anything else?
I'm just sitting up here feeling very proud right now.
You're going to have more questions.
So yes, we will, and we do, and there's one that came up during this meeting. I want to make sure that you and Steve follow up with this. We would like to find out if the other churches have to carry any additional riders on their insurance to be an overflow facility, and Stephen will ask our insurance carrier if we need to add a rider for that purpose.
Right, and thinking through, we have provided a certificate of insurance, and what that does on our insurance, it names you as the insured. But I know you and Emily can talk about the insurance stuff.
Okay, well, that sounds like it may be the answer, and thank you for
And we had the
providing
zoning
that.
question back here as well, and, okay, all right.
Okay.
Thank you, folks.
Richard and Jesse, thank you for coming today. We appreciate it. And you don't have to stay for our budget unless you want to hear about that. Okay, we thank you again. Are you going to do the budget? Okay. All right, so the next section of our meeting, the next portion of our meeting is to approve the budget, which we need to have that approved prior to the charge conference on the 25th. Al is going to start off with that. Hope would like a copy of the budget.
All right, if you notice, if you're looking at the budget, I want to point out a few things. Again, this has gone through the Finance Committee several times. So you look at the apportionments, that is set by the United Methodist Church. It went down 4%. Flower expense, we reduced that entirely because we have a dedicated fund for that. So we figured, at least for a year, let's use that fund rather than putting more money from our budget into this fund, or this budget that doesn't get spent. We've got a fund for that. Same thing with the bell choir, chancel choir, and missions. Well, not missions. I'll hold off on that one. Bell choir and chancel choir, they have a music fund. So our plan is use that money. We'll consider putting it back into the budget next year if needed, if those funds are expended. Yes.
Mostly because Phil's not. Oh yeah, and I always tell people they need the microphone myself. Largely because Phil's not here, I wanted to speak up about this point because ever since he's been hired, ever since I was hired as the organist, there's been a lot of confusion for us about how this whole apportioned music budget, donated music budget, use this money for this, use that money for that, this can only be spent on this, none of it's in writing. So when Phil came here, he didn't spend anything. He didn't buy a single piece of music till like a month ago. And it was because really he couldn't figure out what he was allowed to do. And so when I saw this with a 0 on it, I got a little alarmed. I sent you that message. So there's no problem, I'm sure, but both of us would really love if we could have an explanation of how the music fund works, what we have, how we can spend it, etc. Because apparently there's $3,000 or something that I don't see on this sheet, but everyone tells me we have. I just wanted to bring that out there officially. We're kind of lost in the field right now on this. So thank you.
Yes, we'll get that information to you. And as long as I've been here, it's been confusing to me too. And I think the end up resolution is you got a music fund. You decide how to spend it. There was some funding going on before that was, if we're going to take a trip or do something, we'll use that money. You know, I think that needs to come from the choir and the music director and choir director and the bell choir. They need to figure that out. Yep. Yep. Missions, we have a great mission going on, and Peggy does a great job on that. And but we've got money out there where people give. When the mission comes up, they give. So why have it as a budget item, right?
Because that's what I've requested.
Where are you?
We've always had a line item for missions, $1,200, and so $100 a month went to whatever the mission project was. In addition to the other things that people contributed to. You're cutting back on the mission contributions.
So you think that should remain in the budget?
I certainly do.
No. Yeah, I think we did talk about that as a finance committee, and I think Steve mentioned that he had mentioned that to you, and it was okay to take it out or not to leave it in or whatever. So then maybe that's an item that we need to revisit as a finance committee. Wayne, get
Thank you, Wayne. I'd like to say at this late date in the budget cycle with the church, or the church conference being 8 days away, as Dallas put it a moment ago, it might be a little bit too late to be saying we need to keep this line item and keep that line item. Our job at this council meeting is to look at the budget that the finance committee and the budget committee are presenting and say yes or no, not to pick it apart and redo their work. Steve Nyberg.
There are no secrets as far as designated funds. At any point, at any time, anyone can ask myself or Al for the balances in the fund. The mission fund itself, there is a mission fund, and it has $900 plus in it right now. We can use that next year for the $100 a month if we want to. But there are no protected funds. If a fund says church music, it can be used for church music, and I can give that to anyone who requests it, from Phil to Dallas at any point. I'm really not understanding why our funds, they're very transparent. They've always been transparent. So, and I agree with you, Greg, at this point, we shouldn't be discussing, you know, the line items of the budgets, which have been discussed by the Finance Committee. And we're looking at the budget in its whole, and there are many things that we give to as a church. When Peggy gives her appeal for missions, we have tremendous givings. Stuff, physical things that come in, and money. And almost every one of those monthly missions generates $300 to $400 to $500. For us to have to take more money out of our budget and contribute, our congregation is contributing. So I was the one who really started this, who basically said, we have a budget that continues to grow every year, and we have certain line items that we never consider making an adjustment to. This was the year that we did it, and there were savings throughout the budget because of this, and that's going to help us get through our year. It doesn't say we can't give to missions. It doesn't say we can't give to the choir. We can do whatever we want as a congregation and put it in the fund, and that fund is available to anyone who asks me.
I know we're not supposed to be picking it apart line item by line item, but I think that some of this money that comes in monthly from missions, the financial portion of it, is because people do that instead of contributing. Yes. So that would go in addition to the $100 a month that we have been sending to each mission.
Yes, that's my opinion too. Nobody asked me.
I have a question. I may have missed that, But is the over-under column, is that through the end of the year, or is that just through September, or what?
September.
Through September?
That says September. That is through September. Hey, Wayne, can you cut this mic down here off or down? Feedback from your mic.
I understand.
No, I'm talking about this budget. All right, well, I have a question. If maybe I'm too early on the question, but workers' comp insurance?
Yeah, you're too early.
Okay.
Now, we do need to address that missions because, during our meeting, Steve mentioned that he had spoken with Peggy and discussed leaving it in or taking it out, and it didn't matter. So apparently it does matter. Okay. Worship supplies, again, that just from we've been under budget, reduce that one. The salary, we cannot, they were recommended by the SPRC, therefore the Finance Committee didn't change any of that, but you see a 5% increase on the pastor's base salary and pension, and no other increases on other reimbursable items. On the next page, you see the staff recommendations from the SPRC, either 2 or 3% increase, except for secretary's salary, which was increased 18.8%. SPRC investigated that and evaluated corresponding or equivalent salaries for that in this area for part-time secretaries, and they felt that that was a reason to increase that. We eliminated the guest speaker, thinking, we use our own speakers, or use speakers within the conference that Steve would coordinate with, and come in for some type of mission without costing, a memorial. Workers' comp insurance. Parker, you wanted to talk about that?
Yes.
Hold on and get a mic.
You're saying you're under budget for the year, through September of $88, but if I'm not mistaken, that's paid quarterly. Is that right, Steve? And you're going to have another payment come due, so if you reduce it 13%, I think you're going to be way under budget for the next year. Pretty sure it's quarterly, and I hate to do this, but I'm going to back up the missions. You say we haven't paid anything out of the missions budget for 2021? Well, you got a zero here for 2021 through September, showing zero. The budget was $1,200, and we paid zero.
No, the column shows whether you were over budget or under budget. We are at budget, spending exactly 100.
Okay, all right, I got you.
All right, so that workers' comp may in fact change because of how it's calculated and paid. And then trustees, we've got the trustees budget from the trustees. Property insurance taxes went up 12%, eliminated the capital improvement, thinking we're going to be going with fundraising events if we do things like that. The IT AV loan is not there. Utilities, basically the same. I think we spent less utilities right now. It could be because of COVID, but not using facilities less. Ray?
Yeah, pertaining to the music fund and so forth. When I was the choir director, there was always a music fund that had upwards of $3,000. When I was down, all of a sudden that is not there. That was never taken out of my salary.
The fund is still there, still $3,000.
But it's not listed anywhere.
Okay.
It is listed every single council meeting. It's discussed, reviewed. Any committee chair can get that information from myself or Al at any point. So I will get it to you, both you and Phil, this week. Yes. Okay. We'll talk about it.
the choir and the pianist, the choir, the bell choir director, music, the choir director, all need to get together and figure out how to spend that money. All right, any other questions about the budget? All right, who else who needs more sheets of paper? Oh, we don't need sheets of paper, I don't think, right? No further questions? We need a vote.
You gonna make a motion?
You don't need it if it comes from
There you
committee,
go.
right?
There you go. That's one thing I never could get straight.
Do not need a motion to approve the budget that comes from a committee. Right? So all in favor of accepting the motion as the budget for 2022 as written, raise your right hand. Right. All, okay, down. All opposed? Any opposed? One opposed. Okay. Motion, budget carries. Was that a, Sherilyn? Was that a yes or no or maybe? Okay. How many yeses? Raise your hand if you're yeses again, so we get an accurate count. Yes, approving the budget, if you're on the committee, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 2 noes. Thank you. The next and last question, item, you want me to go ahead and proceed?
Go ahead, Al.
We have had some kind of conflicting, I guess, guidance on use of masks in the church. So I wanted to make sure we understood that and that we, as a church council, approves our policy. Okay? So I wanted to take an email. Hopefully everybody got the email, but this is the updated policy from United Methodist Church, South Carolina, revised on August 16th, 2021, which, let's see, all eligible persons are strongly encouraged to be vaccinated as soon as possible. Local church leaders are expected to continue to make best decisions for their congregations and communities, taking into account the latest CDC guidance and the circumstances of their congregations and communities. Now I want to interject here. The latest CDC guidance on the website is from March of this year. So it is in fact dated. Because of age or health conditions, not all people are able to be vaccinated. Churches are encouraged to make plans that enable safe participation for those still at risk. All members are reminded that individual circumstances differ, and all persons should respect the decisions made by others as they assume personal responsibility for health and safety during the pandemic. We recognize that in almost every congregation there are differences of opinion about the best way to respond to COVID-19. We urge patience and understanding as we continue to seek the best ways to serve God and one another. We offer the following considerations about ministry areas that have generated numerous questions. Choirs. Churches are encouraged to take steps to limit the spread of aerosols and to distance choir from the congregation. Choirs up there, they are separated. Choir members have been vaccinated. Communion. We are thankful for the gift of being able to participate in communion. We recommend that churches that do not have 100% vaccinated persons attending continue the safety practices already in place, including the use of prepackaged communion elements. And I think that's what we're doing, right? Children. Currently, there are no vaccines available for children under the age of 12. We encourage churches to follow the CDC guidelines that apply to this age group. Special health conditions. And I think this is where we fall in mostly, right? Please encourage the elderly and those with weak immune systems due to health conditions such as diabetes, cancer, and immune-suppressing medications to continue to wear masks, as they may not be fully protected from COVID-19 even after they are fully vaccinated. Other members are encouraged to wear masks out of respect for others around them who may have weakened immune systems. So that's the policy that's from South Carolina United Methodist Church. As with many areas, there are extremes of one side versus over, whether to wear the mask, not wear the mask. CDC first said wear the mask, then they said don't wear the mask. Then you got to wear 2 masks. Do they work? Do they need to be an N95? So there's a lot here and there. So even if you look at who's getting sick, even after vaccinated, the elderly are the most at risk. Those come with health conditions are most at risk, even when wearing a mask. So it's really it's an individual decision. I think for a lot of people it's an individual decision, but I think we need to set because last week, we were here in choir practice and says, well, if two members said if they're required to wear a mask while they're sitting up there not singing, then they're not going to come. And to me, that's, with all of them sitting up there spewing aerosols while they're singing, then they put a mask on. If not, that doesn't make any sense to me. But so I think we need to make a decision on what. So all members have been vaccinated, according to all choir members. All right, so let's discuss this and vote on it. Discuss it and then make a motion, I guess. Okay. Where we have another microphone here, Delinda, please.
My concern is the unvaccinated people, and I know we have one person who regularly attends who is not a member and is not vaccinated, and despite the sign on the door, refuses to put a mask on. I understand this is a personal decision, but on the other side of the coin, I know for a fact there are church members who are not coming because we are allowing that to happen.
And particularly in that one individual or any others? Just that one? All right. Anybody else? Bill? All right, excuse me.
Thank you, Al, for sharing the microphone with me. John Howenstein did an outstanding job this week of sharing some good information with me. And John, if you don't mind, I'd like to share this one paragraph you sent in email about the masks. Most people who wear masks are not as protected as they think they are because they do not follow CDC protocols and guidelines. A properly fitted N95 mask will only let 5% of the virus-laden particles through, while a single layer or improperly fitted and not washed daily cloth mask may let 70 to 80% of such particles through. There's not much protection. You're right. And there's no guarantee that if you have the vaccine, you will not get infected. We just don't know what to do. We can take the far extreme of we're going to bundle up with these less than effective masks and pretend. We're going to get vaccinated. We're going to put signs up on the door and sanitize everything and say that somebody's not vaccinated, but they're not here with the mask on. And yet we'll go out to Walmart. We'll go to Food Line. We'll go down to Empire. We'll go down to Outback. We'll go anywhere else without a mask on. I think we need to come to the decision as to whether or not we have faith that the Lord knows the number of days we have and just accept that. And if it's our call that we die of COVID, that's the Lord's will. Amen. And if it's our fault or our lot in life to die in a traffic accident, that's the Lord's will. Well, you can ask that question. You can ask that question. But if you choose not to put on your seatbelt and you die in a traffic accident, chances are that too was ordained because you had the free thought of mind to do that. The art, it is. There's people that are not coming to church too because they were told you're going to have to wear a mask, and they just got tired of coming to this place. They got out of the habit of coming to this place. Even though our doors are still open for them, they're not coming back. And we just approved a budget with a 5% increase in salary. I don't think there's a 5% increase in money coming in the plate. There's some things that we're just going to have to do by stepping out on faith. And I'm wondering, where is this discussion going? Are we going to make a motion? Is there a motion pending here that says we're going to have to change our policy again? What's happening here? What is this discussion about? Can someone answer that for me? And here's the microphone back, Al. Thank you. I appreciate you.
If we as the policy was for the United Methodist Church of South Carolina, if we follow their policy, we're not requiring masks. We're recommending them. Janice?
I'm just going to say, we're not going to please everybody, because we all know that. We've been here long enough to know that not everybody's going to be happy with the decisions that get made one way or the other. What we have at City Hall is a sign on the door that says, strongly encouraged, but not required. Because as you said, it's each person's decision, whatever someone makes comfortable. If it makes me comfortable to wear a mask, I'm going to wear a mask. If I'm not comfortable wearing a mask, I'm not going to wear one. I wear one when we go into Walmart because it's Walmart. But when I go to work, I don't, because I'm comfortable with the people that I work around. So I think it's all about a person's comfort level, but I think we really just have to say, you know, we strongly encourage it, but we're not going to require it.
Let me just say that there are no rules on wearing a face mask unless you make them. There never have been. The original recommendation for masks excluded businesses from enforcing them and you for wearing them. It's a recommendation, and masks are to keep you from infecting somebody else, and that you contain any moisture you might breathe out somewhat. They do not work perfectly. Nothing does. But there are no rules on face masks unless you make them.
I would just like to find out what our policy is that we approved months ago. Is it to follow the South Carolina recommendations? The guidance?
It was adopted at that time, and it also included a lot more information at that time. There were more procedures at that time than there are now. If we look at this now, it's changed. We have not changed it from the one we did before. So it's the one that was before where we were wearing masks. Everybody was wearing masks. We did, yes. People were coming in. When they came into the sanctuary, they were wearing masks. And that was, isn't that right, Steve? So right now, the motion is to change it to make it the current policy that recommends but not requiring.
Well, I sense this is going nowhere, and I'm hesitant to speak. About 5 weeks ago, the CDC said that if we were going to beat the Delta virus, the Delta variant, all people should wear masks at all times they were indoors, including vaccinated people. I took that seriously. I still take it seriously. About a week ago, Fauci or someone said vaccinated people don't need to wear masks. And now they're even saying children can go Halloween because that's outdoors. But I am one who do not plan to come back as long as people are not wearing masks. And that's not a final, when God leads me back, but I'm not going to volunteer to die from COVID in the meantime.
Any other further discussion, questions, comments?
Al, so it sounds like what we need to do is basically based on what the South Carolina Methodist Conference Church, whatever, has stated, that we need to change our signage at least to basically, what was that the City Hall recommended but not required? Strongly encouraged but not required. So we leave it totally up to the individual. We're not telling them they've got to wear a mask. We encourage it, but if they don't want, we're not going to judge them for not wearing it. What's happening up in the choir loft, that's amongst the choir members, as far as I'm concerned.
Hope.
How many people have had this mic in their hands today and up to their mouth?
All right, we need
Am I allowed to make a motion? Is it, well, I don't know what your motion is. I'll express my viewpoint and I'll let the council make the motion. My viewpoint is to leave the sign and the procedures that we're currently following alone and stick with it. My viewpoint is we leave the sign that's on the door there now as it is. Wear a mask if you want to. A smart person would get vaccinated, guys. There's no doubt about that. But I don't think we need to change anything. I don't think we need to change anything. Membership has probably stayed the same as far as the official number of people that are members of our church. Our attendance is beginning to come up a little bit. I'm not sure that we are seeing a consistent increase in the offering plate, but it needs to come up. I don't think we get there by going tighter on these restrictions. Now, there are some who say, well, there's people that are not coming because somebody's not wearing a mask. Well, we spend $50,000 to solve that problem? You can get church on YouTube, you can get church on Facebook, you can call in and listen on a telephone. You can watch it after the fact. We have ways for people to participate in worship if they don't want to come here. I think this church needs to be open for the people who want to come. I feel a need to come. One of the most liberating days I've had this whole year was a Sunday I came in wearing a mask and saw everybody up here without one. And mine quickly came off. I don't want to go back. I want COVID to go away, but I don't think Dr. Fauci has showed us the way with his waffling and very inconsistent guidance on masks, and we still don't have these N95 masks available to everybody. We just have these paper things that, as John so eloquently put it, aren't really that effective if you get right down to it. I agree. What is the motion?
So, yeah, I'm not going to argue with any of that. I just want to point out, you mentioned if we are going to loosen things and move to recommend only, I think you said leave the signs on the door. The doors actually, they do need to be changed in that case because they say if you're not vaccinated, wear a mask. They don't say recommend.
Yes, we need to change the sign
Well,
if we're
I
going to.
still think it needs to be changed because that sign is where this whole thing came from because it was led to confusion and is it please, is it yes, is it mandatory? I think we should make it a little more clear is all I'm saying.
All right, so we do have an issue with the sign. If we change our policy, I make a motion that we change our policy to match the current United Methodist Church of South Carolina's updated COVID-19 guidance, revised August 16th, 2021. And basically, I read that to you. It says it would recommend to do not require masks. We recommend vaccines, but we do not require vaccines. And it leaves it at that. Yes, John? Well, would we not want to review the next updated guidance without approval, without adopting it as written? Should we? Well, even if you read it, it says it's up to the local congregations to make their own policy. All right, so I made a motion. Is there a second? The motion is to accept the updated COVID-19 guidance revised August 16th, 2021 from the United Methodist Church, South Carolina, as written. Recommends but does not require masks and vaccines. I'm asking if you approve it as is written. I'm not modifying it or changing it. All right. I think Dave seconded it originally. All right. Any further discussion? All right. And this will remove the sign that's on the doors now and modify them to comply with what's in this policy. No further discussion. All in favor of accepting the motion, raise your right hand. This is your job.
Thank you, Al. You did a wonderful job of doing that. I appreciate it. All right, keep your hands up. Keep your hands up. All right, we got almost a majority, looks like, a plurality. Okay, hands down. If you are opposed to this, raise your hand. Motion carries. All right, guys, this has been probably one of the most laborious church council meetings we've had in a long time. I still love everyone. I hope y'all all love me and each other. We shall see each other next week. Go with God's blessing. Amen.